When talking about the NBA media, there's been a fair share of bad commentators and awful talking heads, like Stephen A. Smith, Skip Bayless, Kendrick Perkins, even Ryan Hollins. Those four guys right there are definitely top tier of the worst NBA analysts. But in my personal opinion, there's one guy who takes the cake as the definitive worst analyst in the sports game. That happens to be Nick Wright at Fox Sports. And if you aren't familiar with Nick Wright, he's one of the biggest LeBron James defenders. He'll prop him up in any scenario and downplay any other great player if it helps LeBron James and it benefits his argument. And in today's video, we're going to look at a very quick segment where it debates Michael Jordan, his competition, and how the 80s and 90s are overrated as a great era. So with that being said, let's get right into it.
This is what is frustrating for me, because Bruce said the thing everyone always says, which is there was a dynasty during Jordan's era, but we don't count it because it doesn't help the Jordan argument. Now that's all Bruce said.
So stepping in very quickly, Nick Wright already is kind of being disingenuous as well as misleading. As in Jordan's playing career, yes, there was one dynasty, that being the LA Lakers. But for Jordan, he came into the NBA as a rookie in 1985. At that point, the Lakers had already won 2 championships, and during Jordan's playing career, they only won 3. Also, one thing I do want to point out is that Nick Wright refers to the 80s as the Jordan era, when everyone knows Jordan's era was the 90s, and his overall championship winning prime was from 91 to 98.
Bruce said,
So we're going to count everybody that beat LeBron before he started winning?
What I'm going to say is in Jordan's career, in years he was active, 3 teams went back-to-back. That seems noteworthy. The Lakers did it, the Pistons did it, the Rockets did it.
So, jumping in very quickly, once again, Nick Wright is highly disingenuous. And at the very end, he mentions Houston going back-to-back on Jordan's watch. Now that's pretty funny considering Jordan, he didn't play 94, and 95 only played 17 games during the regular season. And even looking at the LA Lakers, when they went back-to-back, Jordan at that point was in his 3rd and 4th season. Now the Pistons, that is fair, as Jordan then was in his prime and an MVP player. And if you look at Jordan's time as a Bull, there are only 4 teams in the NBA that won championships on his watch. If you include the Wizard years, that bumps up to only 5. Compared to LeBron James, looking at his pre-Lakers career, there were 7 teams won championships on his watch. And if you include the Lakers, that bumps it up to even more at 9. My overall point being, if you're going to make this argument against Jordan, have that same energy for LeBron James and be consistent.
See, but so here's the thing. This is also, if I were to tell you, Shaquille O'Neal and Kobe Bryant and Tim Duncan won rings on Jordan's watch, you guys all roll your eyes and say that's ridiculous. Oh my God, that's so outrageous, it's unfair. Shaq and Kobe won their ring when Jordan was 38 years old. How old's LeBron James? Anybody know? Oh, he's 37 and a half. And Steph won his, so it's different. It's not fair. Nobody ever does it. Nobody ever says, this is what we hear, Wilds, nobody ate on Jordan's watch, which is true as long as you're excluding Kareem, Magic, Worthy, Bird, McHale, Parrish, Isaiah Dumars, Akeem, Drexler, Duncan, Robinson, Shaq, Kobe. Nobody else ate, though. He's right about that.
So, Nick Wright actually went there and made an absolute fool of himself in the process. As once again the theme of this video is be consistent and apply that same logic. After watching that minute-long clip of him bashing Jordan, let's apply his same logic to LeBron James, the player he believes is the greatest player in NBA history. If you look at All-Star Hall of Fame players who won on LeBron's watch, here's a few. Chauncey Billups, Ben Wallace, Tim Duncan, Tony Parker, Manu Ginobili, Kawhi Leonard, D. Wade, Shaq, Rondo, Pierce, Ray Allen, Kevin Garnett, Kobe, Powell, Dirk, Jason Kidd, Curry, Clay, Draymond, KD, Kawhi, Lowry, Giannis, Drew, as well as Middleton. That's 25 All-Star Hall of Fame players who won on LeBron's watch. And one vital question I have to ask What top 75 player, all-time great legend, didn't win a championship because of LeBron James? When you look at Jordan, he has players like Karl Malone, John Stockton, Charles Barkley, Patrick Ewing, even Reggie Miller, who didn't win because of him. So once again, Michael Jordan beats LeBron James at Nick Wright's own game. And in my own personal view, when talking about LeBron's era, I would say realistically, that's from 2011 to probably 2018 or 2020. And unlike Nick Wright, I'm actually realistic, and I wouldn't say someone like Chauncey Billups in 04, quote-unquote, won on LeBron's watch, as once again LeBron James was a 20-year-old rookie playing Cleveland with little or no help. The same thing for Jordan at the beginning of his career, as well as the end. And one more thing I do want to talk about is a Nick Wright tweet from earlier this week. It involves Michael Jordan, as well as LeBron James. And right here on your screen right now, you see a tweet from Dr. Guru talking about Jordan chasing stats in order to be the GOAT. He makes a pretty good overall point, once again emphasizing longevity stats, racking up points, assists, and rebounds, does not make the greatest player in NBA history. Now, Nick Wright in this Twitter thread, he took the bait and responded with the following. Nah, but maybe try to tell him not to quit the sport twice, try to beat Larry Bird in a single game in the playoffs, and try not to wait till 25 to finish above 500. Now, Nick in that simple tweet right there makes 3 major points, and he's wrong on all 3. And looking at his first overall point, he refers to Jordan quitted the game twice, that being 93 as well as 98. Now for 1 second, let's think and remember what happened after 93. Michael Jordan's father after that season, he was murdered in cold blood. That's why Jordan in large part retired. That right there happening is not Jordan quitting the game. The same thing goes for 98, as once again Jordan, he won a championship and then retired at age 35. At that point in the 90s, being 35 years old was considered ancient, and him going out on top, once again, was not quitting. And if you want to juxtapose this to LeBron James, when he quit on his teams, I could say LeBron has quit multiple times. That being in 2010, 2014, 2018, and possibly in 2023. Now, looking at Nick's second point, he brings up Larry Bird and the Celtics beating Jordan every single game they played. Now, at face value, that fact is 100% true. But adding some context, look at that team Larry Bird had in 1986 compared to Jordan. That Boston team won 65 games, they were first in defense, third in offense, and first in net rating. And in my own personal view, at worst, a top 5 team of all time. And looking at their playoff run, en route to the finals, only lost 1 game, and for the entire postseason, only lost 3. Is there any 22, 23-year-old in NBA history who could beat that Boston team in a series? And looking at Jordan in that series, he did his fair share, averaging 43 points, the highest in a series ever, 6 boards, 6 assists, 2 steals, 1 block on 51% shooting. In Game 1 he had 49 points, and in Game 2, 63, the most in playoff history. If you have any common sense, any decent NBA knowledge, or just any sports knowledge, you know Jordan in this series was not the reason the Bulls lost versus the Celtics. The same exact thing can be said for LeBron James looking at the 2018 finals. Versus Golden State, he was severely outmatched and got swept in that series. But LeBron individually averaged 34 points, 10 boards, 9 assists on 53% shooting. Is there any NBA fan alive who blames LeBron James for losing that series? And once again, point out hypocrisy, Nick Wright always downplays championships and their overall impact, and he calls winning a team accomplishment. Unless Jordan loses, when at that point, it's all on Jordan and he's to blame. Are you seeing the double standard and the obvious bias? Now, looking at Nick's last point, he brings up Jordan not being above 500 till age 25, which at face value seems pretty bad, but when you add some context, is not nearly as damning. Looking at Jordan's rookie season, the Bulls that year won 38 games with him playing. His second year he was injured, they went 9-9 with him, and were at 500. Then his third year, they went 40-42, once again below 500, but they made the playoffs. And it wasn't until his fourth season they were above 500, winning 50 games. Now, Jordan, all 3 years, his team made the playoffs, and Nick Wright sees that as a knock on his legacy and his overall greatness. So with that being the case, let's be consistent and apply that same logic to LeBron James, looking at his first 3 years. LeBron, his rookie year, he missed the playoffs, his second year missed the playoffs, and his third year was finally above 500. Now comparing both LeBron and Jordan's first 3 years, LeBron James made the playoffs once, compared to Jordan, who made it all 3 years. Once again, I'm hammering it home, if you're going to critique Jordan on this, have that same energy when it comes to LeBron James, the quote-unquote greatest player of all time. Now, with that final point being made, that is the end of the video, and my overall summary of Nick Wright and his terrible LeBron James and Michael Jordan takes. As always, thank you guys for watching, hope you enjoyed it. I'll see you guys next time.